We'll get started in a few minutes. New Hampshire, Georgia. Amazing. Amazing. Well, as I say every week, you guys are the best. This is so much fun. I love these lives. It's so much fun. Just hop on the internet and hang out with Bitcoiners every Monday. It is just about the best. This is a ball. Okay. Uh, Let me pull up the price. We will get started and we will bring in Sir Dylan and Sir David Zell. We are at, all right, once we cross 200, we're at 199. We need one human to join and we're going to kick this off. Welcome, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. I am your host, Jack. We're going to get started in just a second. We're going to give everyone another 30 seconds to pile in here. As a reminder, we just blasted through 200. Okay, as a reminder, real quick, everybody. Questions. We're going to have guests come in. We're going to have guests leave. You guys write your questions in the chat. If you don't know what I'm talking about, if you're watching this live stream on a place that doesn't have said that.
I don't think that was me.
Here,
I don't think that was me.
Let me remind you of the accusations because I have the painting right here.
That doesn't sound like me.
No, listen, from the Money Matters faithful, we've been going live the last few weeks. Oh, can you guys not see Dylan? Uh-oh, Spaghetti-O. Hold on. Dylan got that dog in him.
I think it's just the delay. Maybe.
Oh. Okay. Well, let me know if you guys can see Dylan or if you can't see Dylan. I'm looking in the chat and I will change it. Oh, you saw him. Okay, perfect. Fake news. CNN. Who said that? It was this painting purchased for 6 Bitcoin many years ago. The internet said you used when flirting with women in our old apartment. I didn't say that. The internet said that.
Unfortunately, I've never seen that painting in my life, so.
Wow. Now that I can say is a lie because wow, Dylan.
I've never once seen that painting in my life.
He joins the podcast and he starts lying. Okay, in all seriousness, Dylan, how are you?
Yeah, good. Happy to be here.
Happy New Year.
David, I run a think tank called the Bitcoin Policy Institute, and our whole sort of vision and our whole work is centered around the idea that Bitcoin is good for the world. In 2021, there were a bunch of regulatory scares, and namely this sort of provision in the tax bill that was sort of a de facto ban on, depending on how you read it, everything from like miners and wallet companies to just like people self-custodying their own Bitcoin and or running a node in their basement. And so I was sort of just watching all of this like play out and trying to understand like why the industry had sort of gotten to this point. Like my view at the time was, oh, there's all these big lobbying companies and like firms, and this is like a nascent but large growing industry. Like surely they've kind of just got this stuff on lock. And that sort of just sent me down a crazy rabbit hole, somewhat of a fractal of the Bitcoin rabbit hole, where I realized that, there was a real white space in the sort of DC advocacy world, which was sort of focused entirely on Bitcoin, which is crazy to me because that's the whole innovation. And yet, sure enough, every time there was a policy decision, there's some roundtable convened, you can't exactly call the CEO of Bitcoin. Bitcoin doesn't have a CEO. You can't call the policy, and then pages and pages of sort of planning and like, objectives. And then, what do we do if Trump wins? And obviously those are two very like radically different game plans. The Harris game plan was essentially a recognition that we're going to have to keep playing defense, that the energy critiques will continue to abound, that we will need to work really hard to Yeah, to basically make like a sort of strong progressive human rights case for all of this, which we sort of are still doing. But yeah, I mean the biggest split was, are we on the back foot for 4 years and kind of having to like humbly be like, please don't, please give us the time of day, like let us talk to you about Bitcoin, like you may have a few things wrong, to okay, we've got a guy who's president who says he's sort of down to clown. Everything's on the table with respect to Bitcoin. And so we're living in the timeline where, we get to be really creative and think deeply about not just like how do we fend off the sort of attacks, but how do we pass really good policy that positions America well for the sort of trajectory of Bitcoin's growth? And positions Bitcoiners in America well to remain Bitcoiners in America. So that's kind of where we are right now. I don't. My intuition was that Trump would win. I had lapping. To me is like, okay, I'll do a victory lap when they let Ross out. I'll do a victory lap when we get an SBR done. I'll do a victory lap at like all of these like stages. But for me, like election night was not a victory at all. It was sort of just like, all right, it's time to get to work, and we got to be really cognizant of the fact that, I think like the sort of reductionist view is like, well, Trump's pro Bitcoin, Trump's the president, he's got a mandate, so like it's all sorted. We're just good now, and I'm just like not sure that's entirely the case. And so, kind of next day was, all right, like what are the sort of most important things that we think are, I mean, maybe they're controversial to the general public, but for the conversation here, like things that are not controversial to the crypto industry was sort of my bright line. Like, what are the sort of things that we can put in executive orders that Trump can sign on day one of office that are like common sense things, like pardoning Ross, establishing a strategic reserve of Bitcoin, sort of doing something to abate the Department of Justice's sort of attacks on, open source devs. Can we think about like, obviously it's not long term, but like, can we get some sort of executive action around self-custody? And then thinking about how to sort of build coalition peer-to-peer transfers of value without an intermediary. That code is a bank. That code is a financial institution. That code should have all of the same regulatory and compliance burdens as Chase or JP Morgan, which is insane because software cannot report on its users. It cannot like log on to the government website and like fill out a form. It's code. So that's like a clearly unworkable legal theory, but it's the one that's been upon which like really all of the DOJ's arguments in the Samurai Wallet case, for example, like rest. So thinking about like, okay, there are clarifications that via executive order would probably be profound, like clarifying that a Lightning service provider, a node runner, a wallet company, that all of these constituent actors that support the Bitcoin ecosystem, unless they are taking control of custodying someone's funds and then moving them somewhere else at that individual's direction, that those entities not be treated as money service businesses or as banks. That's just a crazy way of regulating. Like I said, it's we're just a commodity.
We're not a security. Companies like Strike aren't getting sued by the SEC. There isn't a lot of ground level legwork to do to make sure Bitcoin is okay in America. It's how can Bitcoin excel in America? But what I've said often on this podcast is almost the opposite. Like, you need Bitcoin more than Bitcoin needs you. How can America excel by utilizing Bitcoin? And that's what I think is really interesting about your work, and what people are missing is that I think in crypto, there's a lot of folks that are, how can we allow crypto to excel in this country? Because there's been a lot of lawsuits, there's been a lot of attacks, there's been a lot of overregulation. But for Bitcoin, Bitcoin doesn't need any help. America needs Bitcoin. It's how can this country excel by using Bitcoin? And that's the strategic reserve, or that's allowing Bitcoiners to spend their Bitcoin without cap gains tax to provide useful competition, to
businesses like Visa and MasterCard, which will drive down costs, which will drive up innovation, which will allow smaller business to flourish more, et cetera, et cetera. So I think that's interesting. Something that everyone should know is Bitcoin's in a fine spot in DC, in my opinion. I got in an argument with my dad about this of like, I run a Bitcoin company, one of the biggest in the world, and like no one attacks me. And I know that that's a narrative and that people want to think that, but no one ever attacks me. In fact, we're supported. There was a point in time where we struggled to get a bank in office and starting to make policy changes. Well, David, we appreciate it. Where can everyone watching and listening find you? How can we support you? What do you want people to know as we end up or as we wrap up here? Excuse me.
Yeah. Well, so again, we're the Bitcoin Policy Institute. You can find us at www.btcpolicy.org. btcpolicy.org. You can also Google Bitcoin Policy Institute. Yeah, I mean, I think the message to anybody interested in sort of this work at like the intersection of Bitcoin and sort of policy advocacy, yeah, you should get involved. Like I mentioned at the start of this call, we're hiring for several open positions. Like, humbly, I think these are kind of like unicorn jobs. Like there aren't many ways that you can just reliably get paid to write about Bitcoin and think deeply about Bitcoin. So if you're the kind of person who loves to do those things, maybe you already do them, and the notion of getting a paycheck to do those things is attractive to you, I would strongly consider applying to work with us at the think tank. And yeah, other than that, like, elevate our work